incredible weather. It's kind of a joke. And last season when I was starting the show, it was just the exact opposite. What can we say?
It rained every single day.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we were just talking with Blake about is the fact, I think you probably said this at your panel, that this season is much more of a road trip for a lot of the main characters, and you split up and you've got different storylines going on. Could you guys talk about, and you in particular, David, what made you decide to take everybody out of Florence and start splitting the characters up and creating different stories with them?
I was just very conscious of the fact that, well, okay, let me back up. The first season was bookended by a big historical event, the Pazzi conspiracy, which is something real, which has erupted in Florence and caused a lot of problems. And we deal with the ramifications of that at the beginning of the second season. But I was just very conscious of, I always wanted the show to be a road show, and I didn't want to just repeat ourselves for the second season. So I didn't want, I call it, it's too tiny town. I didn't want everything happening. You know, there's a move, it's like, oh, we've already built these sets, so let's just keep writing scenes that happen on the same sets. And I kept pushing for, no, I want to go to Naples, and I want to go to South America, and I want to go to all these places. And eventually, and there was this negotiation, well, can you go to South America for 2 episodes? And I wanted 6. And then we ended up like somewhere in between. But having done it, we also have a much bigger visual effects budget this season. And we were able to build on it. We had our existing sets, so you can use that as an asset. And we had also had our digital sets. We'd spent close to $500,000 building digital Florence and digital Rome. But we already had those things, so we weren't starting from scratch. So then we could add money to other things. And I think Starz was nervous about going to South America, doing something like that, Machu Picchu. But they were very impressed, and we pulled it off, and now they said you can go anywhere in the world you want. So.
What about you, Tom? How did you feel getting out of Da Vinci's workshop and out and about a little bit?
It's fantastic, actually. It's very interesting. They just shot a scene where you finally get back, and it was very strange. Sort of the feeling when you're a kid and you go back home and everything suddenly the house feels smaller and your yard feels smaller. And it was that sort of strange sort of feeling on the set as you go back to a workshop, and having done these huge wide open spaces and seen the scope that the show can go to, you go back to the workshop and you think, oh, this feels small, we've got somewhere else to go.
We also shot out of Wales for some of
we went all over the strangest locations in Britain that we didn't know. There's a place called the Lost Gardens of Helligan, where various kings in the the first travellers went abroad to South America, brought back plants from South America, from various jungles, and just left them in their castles' gardens, and then abandoned them. So they're these genuine overgrown jungles in Wales.
That's random.
We know had any idea it was there.
We shot in Cornwall.
Yeah, shot in Cornwall.
So we got out of Swansea for a while.
Yeah.
So at the end of the first season, he chooses to go save Lorenzo instead of going, on the ship where he's supposed to. So, and the trailer did kind of glimpse that there were some ramifications for that action. I wonder if you could talk about that.
Ramifications for
not.
Well, certainly the Turk thinks that he's abandoned his quest. There are ramifications. The problem is he's in a tight spot with Lorenzo. Literally and figuratively, the man has his hands to his neck. Elliot Cowan's like 6'4", and he's found out everything. It was a very difficult situation to get out of, and there are obviously going to be emotional ramifications and physical ramifications for that. But David and the writers came up with the most ingenious way to solve both of those issues at once in the first episode, and that will actually lead to. I mean, that will actually strengthen everything he needs to go on the rest of the quest. We can talk about that. Sure. So, yeah, I reckon. Sure. Transfusion? Yeah. So, there's a very early version of a blood transfusion in the first episode of Leonardo deciding the only way he can potentially save Lorenzo's life and keep Florence alive is by pouring his own blood from himself. And the thing you see a glimpse of the trailer into Lorenzo's arm. Unfortunately, he has no idea about blood types, which must just be the same, which is really
just worked out.
Just worked out.
They kind of become, they do become blood brothers.
So yeah, it's a smart way of getting out of a very, very difficult situation.
I think that the idea is that we lost. I mean, we knew historically that Giuliano was going to die. Although I love the fact that Giuliano, I don't know if you caught it, he's in the trailer. So, because I've always said that the show has a non-linear structure, and that we thought it was fun to show. Yes, we shot with Tom Bateman, who plays Giuliano in the second season. So, yeah, the idea is that Giuliano died, he lost his brother, and then that Lorenzo kind of adopts Leonardo as his new brother to a certain extent. But it's, I mean, I'm really proud of the second season. I loved what we did the first season, but I think the second season is stronger.
Oh yeah,
It's introduced a ton of new characters, and I mean, there's some real standouts. I mean, aside from the obvious ones like Tom and Blake and whatnot, it's also Da Vinci and Riario get thrown together for quite a bit in this season. They're together for about 5 episodes, which is really fun. But Elliot Cowan, who plays Lorenzo, who couldn't be here. I mean, we had to pick. We're still filming right now, so we had to pick some of our actors. But Elliot Cowan, who plays Lorenzo, is amazing in this season, and really gets the shit kicked out of him as a character and an actor, which is fun because he's not in Florence most of the season, which is fun. We took him out of his comfort zone. And if you know your history at all, what happened after the Pazzi conspiracy is that Rome declared war on Florence, and then Naples, which had the biggest standing army in Italy, sided with Rome, and Lorenzo traveled to Naples to try to reach a political accord and was taken prisoner, which is what really happened. And so that's part of Lorenzo's story for the season. And it's just fun. He was kind of this, like, you know, buttoned up ruler in the first season, and he's like a prisoner and having to fight for his life for the bulk of the season 2, and it's fun. I think you see him being whipped and tortured and in the trailer. And anyway, Elliot really kicked ass.
Yeah, he does.
There's some photos that Starz released late last night, and I looked at the first one, and it was Da Vinci standing in front of the Mona Lisa.
Yes.
Apparently. Is there anything? I don't know why you're standing in front of it. Since you guys have basically put it out there, is there anything you could say about that?
Well, again, you know, we say time is a river, and I've said that the structure of the show is non-linear. And I can't remember what date he painted the Mona Lisa.
About 15 years after.
Yeah, it's about 15 years later. But, you know, I've said we may even see a glimpse of the end of Leonardo's life in this season. So the plan was always to hop all over the place. Do we see any more of his childhood in this season? I can't remember.
We see more of himself as a child.
Yes. Ooh, tricky answer. Tricky answer. But yeah, it's we get into the Mona Lisa. But one of the things that's also fun about this show is that just because a character is killed off doesn't mean you won't be seeing them again. And there's actually another character that died that you'll be seeing again this season too.
So with kind of having history as your kind of sandbox to play in, how do you go about choosing how much to follow and to kind of and then to expound on? So how do you go about that process?
What the writers and I have always done is say, okay, what are the big giant events that are happening? So we knew the first season would sort of happen, sort of, you know, with the killing of the Duke of Milan in the end with the Pazzi conspiracy, and then roughly the second season is sort of bookended by the rest of the Pazzi conspiracy and something called the Siege of Otranto, which was when the Ottoman Empire attacked the southernmost shores of Italy. And so the plan has always been to say we're going to take these big milestones and then work in between them.
Yeah.
And then, you know, various things happen in between. And in some of the cases, some of our characters might die a little sooner or a little later than they did historically. But the big signposts we're still adhering to.
Gotcha.
And as far as Leonardo and Riario is concerned, and the other people who might travel with them to South America, that is the lost years. There is no historical places to. So we go a little crazy.
Hey, it's all good.
It's good.
Great.